Are you ready to break through the mental barriers holding you back? Welcome to the Mind Mastered Secrets of Excellence with Dawn Grant. Since 2001, Dawn has been guiding elite athletes like PGA Tour champions, Olympians, and world champions, and everyday individuals toward peak performance. With a proven track record, including helping Vijay Singh win the 2008 FedEx Cup, and her PGA Tour clients averaging a 219% increase in earnings. Dawn knows what it takes to succeed. She's the inventor of the Mind Mastered app, author of 7 Strokes in 7 Days, a sought-after speaker worldwide, and the proud owner of Amelia Shotgun Sports in Northeast Florida. Join us as we dive into powerful strategies, inspiring interviews, and Dawn's unique insights to help you excel in every area of your life, sports, career, relationships, and beyond. And now, here's your host, Dawn Grant.
All right, I have Miss Susan, or AKA Susie Dodge, as many of you may know her around town. And she is in the arts and has been her whole life and has brought some really cool things to the Fernandina Beach area that I'm going to let her share with you. I think it's super cool what you've done, Susie, and what you've brought here. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you about it. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And if you could give some highlights, like who the heck are you and why are people going to be interested in listening to our little podcast here?
I love it. Put the pressure on. Who the heck am I? I'm Susie Dodge, and I moved back into the area about 10 years ago after having a pretty good career and dance in the dance community world in New York City. But I am originally from Jacksonville, so I'm a double-edged threat. I'm a southerner, northerner, southerner.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. I speak all languages, as I say, and I don't know. I think this would be maybe an interesting thing for somebody to listen to if they say they have a child in the arts, or if they have a friend in the arts, or if they've always wanted to dabble in the arts. It's kind of a little, people understand music around here very well. It's an activity where you can just sit and sort of take it in, but dance is a little more physical. And not understanding, I find it to be a little bit more of a unicorn around here as opposed to, just a stallion, like a horse. You understand, get on it, I ride. It's a little more like not everybody quite understands it. So maybe if you want to learn some more and hear some more of why dance is important, I can connect it to sport. Because people love sports here. So I don't know why would they be interested? I think it's interesting.
Well, performance is one of the things I've learned working with people in their minds. So, to be able to be your best at whatever is important to you is what we're looking for here, and some secrets to your excellence and what you choose to do with your time and how you choose to be your best in what you decide is worth your time, which you've decided is dance and the arts, right? So take us back to your childhood. Were you always into the arts and dancing, or what's going on there?
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, I've thought a lot about this recently, just, coming to the place where I am right now in my life, in my almost 50, I think past my midlife, or this is my midlife, and looking back at like, just why do I do it? Because sometimes I'm like, is it just like, honestly, is it a curse? Because it's not like I'm doing it for money because there's, or fame or, anything like that. There's a certain thing that for me, when I entered that dance studio and I started moving my body, I felt like connected to God, the universe. I felt like I found a place where I could be safe and I could be me. And there wasn't this other thing. I mean, I wouldn't say that my childhood was horrible, but I came from a broken home. My brother was 6 years older than me. We had blended families. It was, not always perfect. I don't think anybody has a perfect childhood. And I sometimes got ignored or left or forgotten. So when I really started to take up dance, it became my home. And it was a place where I could go and I would just dance for hours. And it just became a place where I really could express myself and not feel worried about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. It just felt easy, breezy type thing.
Nice. So, what was your first exposure to dance then? Were you in the living room or your bedroom, or were you taking classes or what?
Well, my mom used to say that I danced like in the pack and play, the little playpen and stuff like that. And I did take some classes when I was younger, and then I kind of stopped and I did softball and stuff like that. But then I heavily started getting into it more, getting into like junior high school. I started dancing more. And it was the dance studio. I went to a place in Jacksonville called Fascinating Rhythm. And the woman who bought it or started with this named Rhythm McCarthy. And she happened to be like classically trained. So she had studied Martha Graham and she had studied sort of like the finer arts and the pioneers of that, as opposed to just kind of like teaching dance, because she took dance from like the same studio. So there was some classical foundation in there, and she also taught choreography. So I think for me, once she had this choreography class, that's when it united to something bigger than just taking dance. It was creation.
Yeah, nice. How old were you then when you got exposed to that?
I was 10. And I actually came across a video of that. She made us like take a story out of the Bible and create a piece about it. And I did the three wise men traveling across to give baby Jesus their gift. And I was 10, and it was very dramatic. It was really, really like intense. So we had a showing. I can remember my stepfather and my mother both being there, and he took a lot of pictures of me. I had these really awesome leg warmers because it was the 80s. And so I was 10.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And to have such well-rounded exposure at such a young age. So did you find that you were interested in all those areas?
For me, it became at that point the making dance. Because like once I made it and I did it, it was like really, it was amazing that I could make something out of nothing. It was just fascinating because like with dance, which is very different than say, for instance, music or other arts of like painting and visual. Once you create something, it's there and then it's gone. It will never be the same. Like you can hit the same note. You can play you can pass music down for centuries. You can take a painting like the Mona Lisa and you can show it forever. But like dance, even if it's recorded, if you take that same creation and put it on other generations of dancers, it never is the same. It always has a variation or a change to it. So it's an art form that is constantly coming and going. And there's some excitement to that, because you literally are making, like, it's not like you take an instrument and go, doo-doo-doo, or you like painting and like you put a brush stroke. It's literally you have to take human beings and you have to make movement and look at it and then do it again. And it's always sculpting or painting or making it. So that fascinated me.
That makes a lot of sense. And it does make it fascinating.
More so than just a bunch of steps.
Right. So you move forward a little bit. So that was 10 years old. You get into high school. So what happens next?
Well, so, my mom got remarried. It wasn't the greatest. It was a lot of like conflict and change in our lives. And my dad lived in Tampa, and the School of the Arts I was going to, Douglas Anderson at the time, I started there in 8th grade. And that year was really a hard year for me because my friend died and just everything was kind of in flux in my life. And I decided that I wanted to go and leave. And I went to Pinellas County Center for the Arts in St. Petersburg, Florida. And that was a school inside of a regular high school. So it was kind of like taking Douglas Anderson, which is a school of the arts, and putting it inside of Wolfson, which is a regular high school. So I was able to like go to football games, and it was like kind of a mixed life. And it was just a new, fresh start and stuff like that. And I enjoyed it, but that program was really intense on ballet. And then I studied a lot, and I went away on the summers to New York. I studied Alvin Ailey and Jacob's Pillow. And by my junior year, the professor who had changed my life, Reginald Yates, he literally changed my whole scope of dance and how I thought as a dancer. He transformed it. He taught us African dance and Horton and Graham. He had high standards of us all the time. He asked us to be the best that we possibly could be. And he had left the school. And when he had left, it broke my heart. And I tried to do like half a year there, but I didn't have a place. Just became very ballet. And not that I had a problem with it, but being sort of like stockier, physically muscular woman, the ballet world had no place for me. And so I tended to blend more into contemporary modern dance. At the time, we just said modern dance. And I excelled in it. And I just decided to go back, finish my high school degree at Douglas Anderson, which was great. And I'm glad I did. And I did so with a woman named Dr. Penny. She was the director of the dance department there. And she cultivated me as a choreographer. She let me just go to town and create. And they had just built the theater that's there. They had just built it. And we were able to like do student choreography and create lighting. And she gave me an award that year for like best of choreography. She had never done that. So I felt really honored, and I felt like that was a place. And during that year, I looked at schools, and I really not secretly, because it's not a secret, but I was driven to go to a school with my boyfriend at the time, and he could not get into the places where I had gotten. Like I got into North Carolina Schoolyard, and I got into Juilliard. I got into a couple other schools, FSU and stuff like that, but he got into Southern Methodist University, and I got into Southern Methodist University and gotten a full scholarship. So I literally packed up and was going to Texas, and I was excited to, be there. And the second day that we got to the school, my boyfriend dumped me.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally
gosh.
dumped me, like got there and hooked up with some other girl. And I was just like, I'm glad it happened. I mean, in all perspective, you really
Right.
shouldn't follow just because of a boy, but you're young and dumb. But what brought me to SMU, which was really great, is they have a phenomenal dance department. And that's where I met my husband. And that was
Perfect.
the next step. So now I'm in college getting a BFA. So that's the next step of my dancing.
Yeah. So what was he doing? What was he involved in there?
My husband, Joe,
When you met him?
he was in the dance department. He's a dancer as well. So you get a BFA and a Bachelor of Fine Arts and dance performance. And he was a year ahead of me. He had come from DC, so he had more of a ballet background. I had enough ballet, but what I mean by is that he started at 5 because his sister danced, or maybe 6. And so he was a lot younger in the classical foundation, and he grew up in DC. So he was doing Nutcrackers and the Kennedy Art Center. So he went to more of a conservatory than I did with ballet. So I just met him in the dance department. I met him first just like as a friend. And I happened to be in his modern class because I advanced in modern my years, but not ballet. So freshman year, I was with a lot of the sophomores. So a lot of the sophomores were my friends.
Okay, I got you.
So that's how I met him, but he didn't come to class very often. He was a bad guy. He was not so good at going to school. Because it's a funny story. I knew the day I fell in love with him when I was driving in our apartment complex, and I saw him underneath his car. The time was an '83 Cabriolet, and he had his ballet shoes still on from ballet class underneath something on the car. I mean,
my gosh.
And I just went, wait a minute. So he's got his ballet shoes on and he's fixing this car. I mean, little did I know he was an Eagle Scout. He's like this big nature guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cute and hot.
This is my dream come true.
Yeah. And he's a dancer,
Yeah.
So, So, I mean, we were primarily friends because he's a really good friend. Jorge had a crush on me, but I didn't like Jorge. So, but we went a couple double dates, and then his girlfriend and him sort of split, and then we hooked up, and that was almost 30 years ago.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, crazy.
So you finished college. You come back to Fernandina area?
No.
Okay.
So I graduated in 98 and he graduated in 97. He stuck around Dallas because he wasn't really sure what he wanted to do. He wasn't like super motivated to be a dancer because he was like a male dancer. He's like, yeah, whatever. I mean, he could get a job anyway, like wherever he wanted to go because he was male and he danced. So he did a lot of rent-a-prints and he was still trying to find his way. He didn't really know, like, he liked to dance, but I think he just always danced.
Right.
And I was like, it was like, so he and I packed it up and went to New York together. And we were engaged by that time. And we started out 1998, Washington Heights, New York City, hitting the grind, waiting tables, going to auditions, taking class. And he got picked first. He got chosen to dance with Paul Taylor first. And I think it was actually a couple of months later, I got taken in.
Wow.
It was about a year, ish. I don't know. It's, you're talking about your early 20s. So like, does
Yeah.
anybody remember anything from their early
Mhm.
20s? It's all a blur.
Right.
But about around there is when we got into Taylor and started touring.
Into Taylor?
Paul Taylor. Sorry, I
Oh,
shouldn't
okay.
speak slangs. The Paul Taylor Dance Company
Yeah.
and Taylor too. So there was two different. They're similar, but two different companies. One was the larger company, and one was a smaller version of the company.
And so what did that company do? What were you doing traveling around?
So we traveled to one of the tours that we did, what we called it a bus tour. So you would get in a bus and they had bunk, and they would drive to a city. We get to the theater, we'd get out, we'd load in, we'd rehearse the show, then we would perform the show, then we'd jump back on the bus and then drive to the next town. So I think we did like 48 shows in 54 days or something like that. And it's
Oh,
just like around the country. And so we would go in, at that time I was with Taylor too, and we were going into like Thermopolis, Wyoming and Butte, Montana. And we were going to the Dakotas. We were going to all these like small towns that couldn't like take the big company, which was like 16 people. They took the 6-member company, and we were performing the works of Paul Taylor for anybody that would see it, with farmers, construction workers. The whole idea was to bring dance to the communities that would like not normally go to see it like in a
yeah.
big city. That was one of the tours. I've also been overseas, China, Indonesia, New Zealand, Europe, just performing the work of Paul Taylor.
Right. Right. So when you're going to like perform for farmers, like is it their church or something like that that brought you there, or were you guys more on a mission and bringing yourselves there? Like how did that
No,
work?
and it's kind of the place where I am right now as like the Amelia Island Dance Festival. They're presenters. So they're people that are in these towns that are running organizations where they decide that they want to bring in and present companies. So the Florida Theater is one of them. The Florida Theater is a presenter, and they bring companies in and they present them, and then people buy tickets. And then, depending on the presenter, that presenter might say, well, you're going to perform in this theater, but we want you to teach these kids here. Like we would go into different cities and Phoenix and stuff like that. We'd go to different areas and teach inner city kids or, about Paul Taylor and dance. So there was an outreach aspect of it. So yeah, so we would meet the presenter of the town where we get to, and then they would kind of like conduct us, and then we do the show. And depending on the presenter, there was different needs of it. And depending, like sometimes we would finish the show and drive to the next town, sleep on the bus, arrive in the hotel at like 4 a.m, sleep a little bit longer, and then go to the theater and do it all over again.
Well,
So
I got to ask you about that then. So here you are looking to perform physically and probably not sleeping that great. So how did that work out for you?
it's good to be young.
Yeah.
It's good to be young. That particular tour, I got to learn a lot. It's interesting because, we look at it nowadays. If you look at like physical therapy and yoga and massage and stuff like that. And even in so this was like 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, foam rolling just became really like popular. Myofascial release and stuff like that. And a lot of times we'd go to these towns, and people that were like massage therapists or chiropractors would want to work on us for free because we were these like pristine athletes, and they wanted to work on what it felt like to help us and stuff like that. And so we came across a lot of people that had a lot of knowledge. And so there are some days where you would get to the stage and I couldn't feel like my right foot. And you would just spend that time sort of rolling out and figuring out, like Joe loved to take Advil. He was big into Advil because he got 2 herniated discs on one of the tours that we were on. And we would have stim machines and things like that just to keep us, because we didn't have an understudy, and it's grueling,
Mm-hmm.
grueling work. And some of the stage are, cement.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not, pliable. Some of
Mm-hmm.
them are small, some of them are big. So you're always adjusting to that. So you learn really quick your limits.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're young, you push those limits. And as opposed to like dancing in college, and I'm going to make this point if there's any dancers listening or
Mm-hmm.
athletes, when you're young and you're doing it sort of like in high school and then in college, you're doing it to a certain degree, but there's a sense of an end point for you as opposed to like when you're doing it for your livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
There's no end point. It's like something that, you have to stay with it. It's not like I get through this semester and I'm done and then I get summer and I break. Like there's no sense of like structuring or recovery. So you learn really quick how to operate. Like you can't push like all the time like this. Like young people
Mm-hmm.
love to push everything. And really quick, even though I was young, I learned that I couldn't push, that I wasn't going to last. And if I didn't
Right.
last, I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, it makes
And if I
total
didn't have
sense.
a job, I couldn't pay my rent
Mm-hmm.
and live. So I learned really quick on those kinds of tours how to pace myself
Mm-hmm.
and how to use the tools that I was given to recover my body. So
Big stuff there.
huge.
Yeah, I mean, you're opening my eyes to the depth of the dance life, the dance world. There's so much more to it, isn't there? You were talking about fascia and rollers and all that, and I have a trainer, and I mean, it's been around, but I personally haven't done it much, or I have rollers and I don't really use them. But now she's like every day, you know?
Right. And
And
the thing is, I remember recently somebody was like, "Oh, we're doing a foam rolling workshop. You want to join us?" And I'm like, yeah, not like snobbily, but like we were foam rolling 20 something years ago because these physical therapists were trying to keep us at the top of our game.
Mhm.
Um, and I learned so much about that to recover in order to get back on the stage. And it was always about getting on the stage because some things they never teach you is like when you tour, when the athletes go to the Olympics, right? They fly over, and if it's the altitude change, they get time to recoup, or there's temperature, like all those things affect your performance.
Mhm.
When you're doing a 48-day bus tour and you're going from like Thermopolis to Butte, Montana, the elevation changes a lot. And I can remember standing backstage with oxygen tank, and like the locals are like, "You're going to need this." And we're like, "Fine," and then like after I got through the first 30-minute dance, I was off stage like sucking the thing down because
Yeah.
I didn't have time to acclimate, because they're not going to build that into our tour schedule.
Right.
There's no fluff. It's just got to go to the next thing.
Wow.
And you learn really fast. You're like, wow, I'm not superhuman.
Yeah.
I
No,
might
that's
have to
awesome.
do other things.
All right. So how many years did you guys do that, the Taylor tour?
I think it was about 4.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you say wow, but I had friends that did it 22 years.
Holy cow.
Holy cow is right. Holy cow
I
is
just
right.
can't even imagine.
Yeah, I couldn't either. For me, touring became not so fun, especially with planes. So 90% of me leaving touring was I did not like being on the planes. After 9/11 and a bunch of stuff, I grew more and more anxious about flying. People that
Mhm.
know me know that I don't like to fly. And we were flying a lot.
Mhm.
We did bus tours, but we would fly sometimes, 1 or 2 times a week.
Mm.
And a couple bad flights on kind of scarred me. And Joe, he really wasn't digging it. Like he
Mhm.
was just like, this is a lot to share our marriage with. And it's, he wasn't 100%. So we both decided to leave Taylor. It was a hard decision to make, but for
Mhm.
me, not
Mhm.
so much for Joe. But I'm glad I did. Like
Mhm.
in retrospect, I'm glad I did. So we left, and now we were more in the city because we were gone sometimes 11 months out of the year.
Wow.
And so we subletted our apartment to people, and other people lived in our apartment to get by.
Mhm.
Um and that's when we came back, and that's when I did a few more auditions for other things. There was a company, not Dave, Doug Barone. I really liked his work, but then it was like another, like, it was very time consuming because, like, even though I got into Taylor, I had auditioned and spent time trying to get into Paul Taylor previous to the 4 years. So I would say it was a good, like, span of 7 of my years of my life.
Wow.
So I didn't want another 7 years, like, to do the next round of that. So that's when I decided to start my own company. And that's when Joe decided to go into stagehanding. He went into, like, production more.
Okay.
And that's when we flipped careers. And he had a great career at the Joyce Theater doing lighting. He was the master electrician of the theater and really did a great job doing that. And then I started Dodge Dance Company, which I had for about 6 years
Up in New York.
up in New York. And that was hard.
I imagine. So tell me about that. What were you doing on a daily basis?
I laugh just because it's like so crazy. What was I doing? Some days I don't even know.
Yeah.
I was auditioning and getting dancers that I couldn't pay because I had to get money, sponsorship or donors. And, you know, you're in the city with like 1,000 or trillion people that want to have their own company. I truly feel that, especially at that time, that donors like to give their money to male choreographers more so than female choreographers. I can't unpack that right now. I couldn't let you know, but I felt like I gave it my best shot. I had a couple bites here and there. I felt like I had great dancers. We were grinding it out. You know, I was booking theaters, small theaters, creating work from nothing. You know, I learned how to sew to make costumes. There's a lot of stuff. I put together a board. It became nonprofit. But it just was unsustainable. It was literally killing me. And I kind of woke up one day like, why?
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, again, too, I loved Paul Taylor and I loved his work, but Dodge Dance Company, did it really have to be about me? Like, you know, and it was, and I didn't really want it to be. And managing people also became really hard because my craft, I know instruments will be out of tune, but you can tune them or you can fix them.
That's a good analogy.
Right. And like paintbrushes, you can get a new paintbrush. You can buy a new a new canvas or something. You know, the script comes already written. You just give the stage direction and change the actors if it's not working. But with dance, it's like your only form as a choreographer are people, human beings that you have to convince to do these astronomically weird things that are in your head that sometimes hurt them.
Yeah.
So it's you almost become children. I would say children now that I've had kids. At the time I hadn't had kids, but they become your muses. And so it's a lot of energy to keep them happy.
Yeah. You start throwing in different personalities.
Different personalities.
They're different issues. They're different dramas. They're different, like some motivated, some not, some drinking, some not, some
you better
in
believe
toxic
it.
relationships, some not. Holy.
And then on top of it, not really being able, like, by the time I decided to just walk away from it all, I was $52,000 in debt. And it was because I was working and paying to pay those dancers. So I would do every gig I could possibly do to pay them. And, I was just bleeding me from the inside out. It was hurting my marriage with Joe. He didn't want to dance anymore. He had danced a few years for me. And then he's like, I can't do this anymore. And so I recognized at that point that this was a wall that I kept hitting and it was going nowhere. And I had to just stop. And so it was hard, but I did. I just stopped.
Paid off your debt or something. And then what?
So that was a really weird place in my life because all I knew was dance. All I had ever done was dance.
Yeah.
I had started really supporting myself teaching dance, and a lot of people loved my teaching. And so I started teaching more and just mentoring young adults and doing that more while trying to kind of figure out like where I was going. And I enjoyed, it's weird because I'm in a really bad place with teaching. So this is hard for me. So I have to like rewind, like how to say this. Like I have to be in that moment. So I love being in the classroom with these young dancers. I could see it. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. I want to share this with you because this will help you. And that's the way I saw teaching. Let me just help you get through the things that I had to get through and make it easier for you, start focusing here, because my mentors didn't do that. They did other things for me that was really vital that I needed, like repetition and strength and grit type thing. But now I was in a position that I could take my mentors and give back to now who I was teaching. And so that was the focus. And then I had a hard time taking dance class. Sometimes I would go, and I'm going to say this as nicely as I could say, but I would go take a class and I had like more experience than the teacher.
Right.
And I would get really annoyed.
Yeah.
And I felt bad. And I like, Susie, just put your ego in the corner, take the stupid. But I just could, I don't think stupid class. Don't be stupid. Take the class, you know? And so I had to find something else. So I walked into this dojo that does mixed martial arts. And I was like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing MMA kickboxing, and it was so much fun. It was still the movement. I was still moving. It was still an art form. It was a way I could just do something. And I took a little break from the dance part of it and did more of that while still teaching dance. And
That's
so
brilliant.
that was the next sort of step of my life. So,
and
very typical me. I took it way too seriously, and I started to compete in MMA.
Okay.
And no, by any means, it's baby stuff. It's not I'm not going to the cage or anything like that. And it was mostly in grappling, which I liked grappling more than I liked kickboxing. I didn't like kickboxing that much. With that said, I got hit by a bike messenger, messed up a couple of vertebrae in my neck, and was not able to do that as much as I wanted to, and was rehabilitating. And while I was rehabilitating, I was like, you know what? I think I need to have some kids.
My body's still working here.
Well, I'm like, at that time I'm 32, and I'm like, what do we do? I mean, Joe and I had been together 14 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe we should do this thing. So then that's when it all started with the kids.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah. And teaching dance. So it's kids and teaching dance, and then doing like choreographic gigs where people would hire me to create a piece here and there. So.
And you're still in New York?
Yep. Still in New York. Was in New York until 2014. So around 2012, Sam had been born at 2011, and Devin was starting to eke into kindergarten. So the year before he would have to go to kindergarten, I looked at Joe and I was like, oh, we cannot raise our kids in the city. Like, it's not that I don't love the city, but like, I would have to just everything was a chore. Riding the bike, I had to be on high alert constantly. At one point, Sam tried to run out traffic. I mean, don't touch the poop on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
What school are they going to get into? The school that we were zoned for was 89% Hispanic, which I don't care. That's not a big deal to me. 56% of that school did not speak English.
Right.
And my son had a speech delay. And I was like, this is not going to work. So we tried to move to Jersey. We tried Long Island. We looked around, but we just could not really get our feet into an area that was good. And so we both decided it was time to leave. So I did not want to move back to Jacksonville. So we tried a bunch of places in the Carolinas.
Yeah.
And we looked at where's a theater, where could Joe get a job and stuff like that. And through that discovery, my sister, technically stepsister, but we just say sister, lived here. We always visited here. And I don't know who came with the idea. Maybe I said it. Maybe she said it. Who knows? I mean, she'll probably remember. But we decided to move here. And I felt like we had family support. And I love this island. Love Amelia Island. Every time we visit here, we're like, oh my God, this place is amazing.
Right.
And so we did. And that's how we came here.
Nice.
It's exhausting. Could we go to a commercial break?
Right. It sounds like a great life, honestly. It sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome.
It's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of hard work, but saying it's kind of nice to say it because you forget how I'm very grateful for all of those experiences.
Yeah.
As hard as they are, I'm extremely grateful for them.
I could see why you would be. Definitely. Everything seemed to like fold into the next thing, and it all really makes sense on how you kept evolving and learning and figuring out what you wanted to do. And I think that's, another really important element to being successful is like pay attention to yourself. What works for you, what's not working for you, and don't feel bad about it if it's not working. And it might have been a dream at one point. It was something like, I've got to do this, and the world revolved around it, and then you do it for a while, and then it's like it's okay to change your mind, and especially once you've dabbled in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think as an example, I think of something like, oh, one day I'll live on the ocean. I'll have a beach house, and then you experience a beach house. You're like, everything's rusting. There's sand in my house all the time. And, and I want more trees, but
Sure.
you don't necessarily know until you experience it. And it's okay. It's all right to then evolve and go, okay, well, that might be good for somebody else, but it's just not good for me anymore. And it's fine.
Well, it's not part of my chapter.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing is that when you hold on to something, whether it's a self-identity, and that's something that's so hard, I think, for dancers, is because you identify yourself so much in this physical body that is doing extraordinary things, and you're ultimately going to lose because you're going to age. And, as you age, it doesn't mean you're incapable of still doing it. It just means that you have a different place in how to do it. And sometimes the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, and I say the universe, so whoever's listening,
right.
Gives you signs, and you don't want to listen to it because that means change. But inevitably, that's the direction you have to go. And everything was telling me to go this next direction. And I'm glad I did. People always ask me here, well, that must be a change moving from New York City, but I mean, yes, it was a major change for me moving from New York City in the sense that the comforts of life changed. So like in the city, you just get used to walking all the time and carrying your groceries and doing the things that you do. It's just the flow of it. And people always ask me, is there something that you miss in the city? And I do. I miss this sort of community where you're walking by the same people and talking. Like we live in a society here where we go from box to box to box. So I don't really get to like walk by the same people or have that kind of neighborly thing. And that's the thing I miss more so.
Right.
But then I have my own ways of walking community here of like neighbors and clients and things like that. It just changes. But there's also comforts here. Like we didn't have a dishwasher or a washing machine or any of those comforts in New York City for 20 years. So like we rented this place to find a house. And the first thing Joe and I did when we got in there, we're like, oh my God, we have a washer and dryer and we have a dishwasher. And it still has taken me 10 years to figure out how to do the dishwasher. Like Joe always has to redo however I put the dishes in the dishwasher. Cause I'm just like, what do you do with the thing?
I don't know. That might be an issue in most people's homes.
Really?
One loading different than the other.
Well, I growing up, I didn't even have a dishwasher. I mean, we had one, but it didn't work. It was a place to dry dishes after you wash them.
It's handy too.
Yeah. And so now that I'm here, it's this next step has been kind of weird for me because like I'm kind of returning home technically, but I'm not. And it's a different pace. It took Joe and I probably 4 or 5 years to get settled into where we needed to be, right? Like working wise, like figuring out, because we had such jobs that we did up there, and we had a flow to come here and to find out what we had to do here was hard. The cost of living, everyone's like, it's so much cheaper. And it really, comparatively to what we made down here, it was not. Like, it literally felt like the same pressures up there. It's just there you make it.
But things cost more. I got you.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we also live on an island because people would be like, well, isn't it great? Like, it costs so much less here. I'm like, have you been? It's like, this was even 10 years ago.
Right.
I could go to Trader Joe's easily in New York City and spend as much as I did at Publix. I have to tell you this though, when you don't have the Publix experience and then you have it, it's frightening for somebody living in New York City, for somebody to grab your cart and say, "Can I help you?" You're like, "Back off."
Don't
Like
touch my stuff.
we literally bagged our groceries for like 20 years and carried them. So
Right.
for somebody to be like, "Let me unpack this, bag it for you and take it to your car," I literally was like, "How much does that cost?"
Right.
And they were like, "It's my pleasure." And I'm like,
What? Yeah.
skeptical.
Right.
I'm very skeptical.
You must really want something. Yeah.
Because in Jacksonville, I grew up with Winn-Dixie. I didn't grow up with Publix. And I
Okay.
think, I don't even know if Publix was a thing in the 80s.
I don't
can't
even
remember.
know.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry.
That's funny though, because I hadn't really broke that down. I guess am somewhat used to it, so I hadn't had a different experience to realize the contrast with the Publix.
Oh, it's a huge contrast. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just the buy one, get one for the first year that I lived here. I was like, are you kidding me? So I buy that, I get another one for free? Are you kidding me?
I
And of course, Joe's like, "Susie, you got to break down the cost of like per item." And like, it's just, this,
And
you
were
know,
you gonna buy
like,
that anyways, right?
yeah,
'Cause you
like
probably
it's a
were gonna buy
gimmick. Because the first time I went to Publix, like just the fact that I had a cart and then I could shove everything in my car, I didn't have to carry it. I bought so many groceries. I came home and she was like, "What is going on?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "It's buy one, get one." He's like, "Do we need this many English muffins?" And I was like, "I don't know.
Right.
Kids will eat them, right?" Sorry.
No, that is a problem with the buy one, get one. Talk about mental games there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Marketing. Yeah, okay, so you're getting adjusted to
Yes.
Fernandina and island life, and not Gilligan's Island, though. I think people, when they think of an island, they think, "Oh my god, you live on an island." Well, it's not
There's a
Gilligan's
bridge.
Island.
Yeah. Nobody gets stranded here.
It's not that tiny, but yeah.
The
So
landmass of New York City, like it's the same size as New York City as far as the island
wow,
size. Yeah, it's like
really?
12 miles.
I had no idea. I
That's
would
what
have
Joe
thought
said,
New
but
York
don't
City
quote
was
me on
bigger.
that. Somebody's
Yeah.
out there that's gonna like go
I
Google it.
know.
But if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. But
That's
I've heard that.
fascinating, though, if that's
Mhm.
true. Wow. I would have totally thought New York City was bigger. It just
Yeah,
seems so much bigger.
it seems like it because they go up. You know,
Yeah.
there's so much compacted. But yeah, so we're here on Gilligan's Island.
So move me forward, because you end up doing some cool things in Fernandina.
Well, thank you. It's nice to hear that because now I'm in it, so I don't have the way to prospectively look at it because
Yeah.
I'm in it. So I started teaching at the time Kinder Studios with
Mhm.
Alexander Carroll, and that was my first experience in a dance studio. So the dance culture here is very different than I had been used to in New York City. Now, I went to a dance studio when I was young, but the dance culture of the studio has changed drastically since I was a kid.
Okay.
So when I grew up dancing, we did not have dance competitions. Like you heard me, like my teacher had a choreography thing. We didn't have them. And I
Mhm.
think in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started to become a thing. And so the culture of dance changed. Like when you would take class for years, there is a healthy competition in the room with other dancers, meaning, you know, you want to try to be better than your friend next to you, but nobody's going to highlight that or
Right.
nobody's going to capitalize on that. Right.
Mhm.
You're just going to be in the room and you're going to, you know, your friend's going to turn better and you're like, "Girl, you turn better. How do you do that?" You know, like, you know,
Right?
there's this healthy competition. People
Yeah.
get better roles or solos and there's all that stuff that normally is. Right. But I mean, back here, I instantly was thrown into dance competition. And I'm like, what is this thing? What are we competing?
Right.
So I recognize that what makes dance it's not a sport. Okay. If it was, it would be in the Olympics, right? And they tried that this year with
Okay.
breakdancing.
Oh,
And
I didn't know that.
we saw what happened with that because immediately there was a breakdancer from Australia that everybody made fun of. And then it kind of ruined the whole look of what breakdancing was because there was a lot of really amazing breakdancers that participated in the sport. But there's and I actually haven't tapped into because I haven't been on social media or in the news of what's going on culturally with the dance community, but can you really judge and compete something that is the art? And what it has done is it like puts studio against studio, right? And it becomes like a sports thing, but not healthfully. Like, baseball, they meet, they play, they shake it, then they walk away, right?
Yeah.
It's like designed in the sport, but dance is not designed that way.
Right.
And so what I felt was like when I grew up, I could take it this dance studio, but I would go take somewhere else. And then I did DA, and then I jumped around, and it wasn't this like have to be at one place, and I couldn't dance somewhere else. And I was recognizing because it didn't seem like a dance community. It felt very separate to me. And I would kind of go and I guess here, and I would do something here, and I'd do something there, but I didn't feel like there was any connection. And I don't know if there ever could be, or if I can like fight that kind of world of like dance competitions. Because to be blatantly honest, I don't like them.
Right.
And I don't like them because I think they capitalize on parent inner desires, and they give this false idea to a child that they are better than what they are. And they focus on the individual as opposed to the community of it. And when you go dance professionally, you never dance by yourself.
Right. That makes sense.
You have to dance with other dancers for a dance company. And any performance that you would perform in are going to dance with multiple people. So with that said, also bred into this trick and acro, which is more like gymnastics. So shows like So You Think You Can Dance, and the ballroom show, I can't remember, Dancing with the Stars. As much as it's brought some light into the worldwide community about dance, it's also kind of skewed sort of like what is dance,
right?
And what's the purpose of dance. And that's where teaching in a dance studio and kind of being in this area, and then just having a lot of people like say to me, "Oh, you dance, or you're a dancer, what studio did you go to, or how old?" The fact that I just danced at the festival last year and I'm 48. They're like, "Really?" Like, yeah, I can still move my body.
Yeah. Hello.
I'm not like Kane or crippled. So there's what I recognize is this. It's a culturally, I wouldn't say it's a different culture. I think it happened. It's spreading kind of around the U.S. outside of like larger cities with this idea of competition, the idea that we're competing for something against each other. The big breaking point for me with it is Paul Taylor passed away. And anybody who's listening that doesn't know dance, Paul Taylor was one of the pioneers. So the main big pioneer of modern dance was Isadora Duncan. And she was American, and she was a rebel. She took off her shoes and she moved her body differently. And that was like amazing. Like it was like this whole big thing transformed the idea that dance was just not courtly and ballet and proper. It was the idea of expression. And that from there went into Dennis Shawn, Ruth Dennis, and Ted Shawn, and they had a company. And the person who danced for that company was Martha Graham, and she's like a very well-known name. And then Martha Graham, Paul Taylor danced for Martha Graham.
Okay.
So I just connected that tree, if you follow it.
Yeah.
Well, Paul was the last of the pioneers. There's Merce Cunningham, Alvin Ailey, Jose Limon, a ton of them. Paul was it. He was the last of them had passed away. So there was a shift that has happened. And when we went up there to New York for his memorial, they were like in the room and they're just like, okay, it's shifted. Now it's your time. And so I went back. I got on a plane. Hence, I had not been on a plane for probably 15 years. Got on the plane. As I was flying home, I was thinking about just what could I do to preserve the work that these pioneers have done for years.
That's amazing.
Right?
Yep.
And so I thought about Jazz Festival, the Chamber Festival, the Book Festival, the Shrimp Festival. There's all these festivals. And I was like, well, there's not a dance festival.
Yeah.
And so I thought, when I was in Tampa, St. Pete at Pinellas County Center for the Arts, they had the Florida Dance Festival. It is no longer with us. And I attended that as a teenager and it changed my life. It was amazing.
Okay.
So I thought to myself, why don't I start the Amelia Island Dance Festival?
Hi.
I don't know why, but it's a ton of work.
I'm sure.
It's a ton of work. And we haven't been able to really get it off where I can get like salary from it. It's all donation for me still. And that day will come sooner than later. But, and that's not the purpose of why I did it. I just thought if I could use the festival proponent and have a place where artists could meet dancers in a non-competitive way and share the stage, then that would be getting people in as a community and face to face and sharing the stage together. And that would do the work itself.
Right.
Than me trying to like get rid of competitions, like just
right.
It's like, that's not going to change. So like leave that, but maybe just have another venue and an opportunity to create for dance. And so that's why the dance festival started.
And how many years ago was that?
2019 is when we were like, let's see what happens. And weirdly enough, I mean, the theater is not that big as far as Amelia Community Theater. It's probably 186 seats, which is not very many. But we sold out 2 shows the first year. And so everyone's like, okay, well, I think we have something here, And then COVID hit.
Thank COVID. Yeah.
You know what? I'm actually thankful for it. And the reason why is because I did a lot of stuff I would have not done if COVID hadn't had. I mean, I was going down to the beach and filming people dance in the sand and in trees and at the marina and at the courthouse and the post office. I was going around the island filming dancers on the island, and it just thought maybe this dance festival really should be about the island. Like dance inspired stuff from the island. So I'm glad for that.
Yeah, we just moved into a house in March, and there's still a few boxes, the last few boxes. And so the last few days I've been working on them. And one of them is all the art supplies that I had bought during COVID because we were going to be locked down, and I was going to paint. I was going to do origami. Like I had all this stuff. I didn't end up doing much of it, but it calls to me all the time. Like I want to do the art. I want to paint and such.
What stops you?
Workaholic and other self-care things that seem to take the priority, like going to a coffee shop and reading a book. Like there are other things. I'm definitely taking the downtime and doing things for myself, but there are other mani-pedis, like there's these other things. I'm kind of in a routine with how I take a break. I might go for a bike ride, like on the Greenway or something. So I don't know. That's my excuse anyways. I don't know.
Oh no, it's not an excuse, but I mean, it would be interesting if you could see it as more of a break. Because creating something opens a separate part of your brain in recovery. That sense of expression is, even if it's just take out some paint and throw it at the painting, like a Jackson Pollock on it, or something, like not feeling like you're creating, something like a Monet or something, but you're just, the idea of just taking it and creating it and not worrying what it looks like.
That's probably a huge speed bump. For sure.
Most people,
the perfectionistic part of me, the part that wants to have it figured out, and this is what I'm going to do, and then I don't know, it has to be freer, right? It has to be more into it.
Talking about the mindset, I mean, one thing that I've learned through all the years of doing this is that whatever I put out is not going to be perfect, and it's going to be really messy, and it's the process that you have to fall in love with and not the product. So we get so fixated on the product, and that's why I say dance is ever changing, because when you go back and you do it again on the stage, it's totally different. And different dancers bring different energies to it. And so like the idea of the process of that creation of diving into it is mentally a place where I love to be.
Right.
Like, because it is so free. To when you get over what it looks like I get it all the time. I don't dance unless I have tequila in me. I'm like, well, what about tequila makes you feel like you can dance?
Right.
right? It's just losing that inhibition. And what I find we have lost culturally, because dance was a huge part of society, socialization,
Mm-hmm.
community, and we don't do that anymore.
Mm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, we don't have the dance party. We don't have
Right.
I learned square dancing in middle school. They don't do that,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Me
And
too.
you know, there's something about like going to a sock hop, and they have dances at the schools, but nowadays it's like they just go stand in a group of girls and they selfie themselves doing some TikTok dance. It's not like a sense of creating something new and different, but like dance is one of those things when you get on the dance floor and you like let it out. And, you know, think of weddings. Like I
Right.
love to go to weddings. Like I'm the best person to invite to the wedding because I will get people on the floor and dancing because I love it because people will just let go and you just see this sort of like tribal part of that person because
Right.
everybody can dance. It's just this idea that we think it's supposed to look like something
Right.
and
Right.
it doesn't. It's
It's a
supposed to
good point.
feel like something.
I love it.
Sorry.
No,
Put me
great.
down on my dance spiel.
That's great insight. Just rewinding a little bit, you said something that's going to stick with me a long time. But you had said that dance isn't a sport. It's not meant to be competitive. And my brain, thinking of the art category, can you imagine two painters trying to compete on a painting? Like, yeah, it makes total sense that art is not a competitive thing.
Judge it. Like you
Right.
can't judge like so going back to what like a lot of people would know about like so the Australian breakdancer was made fun of so badly socially that they made like a Halloween costume after her. And the thing is like she was coming from an organic place that she was expressing her through the techniques of breakdancing.
Mm-hmm.
That what she did was legit and was legit enough that she was able to go to the Olympics to be judged. But when you bring her in, right, and she's 38 and you compare her to a 17-year-old Asian girl from California where breakdancing culturally happens a lot more, you know, that you can't compare the two.
Right.
Right. It's just, it's not a matter like, oh, she did that move better, you know.
Yeah.
But I personally, I think it's great that breakdancing can figure out ways to judge it. But I just don't think, I mean, could you imagine if you sat like any of the like Picasso and like Michelangelo, like set them down side by side and we're like, hey, okay, now we're going to compare the
We're
two.
going to judge you guys. Yeah.
It
It seems so silly, doesn't
It's
it?
silly,
Yeah.
absolutely silly. I mean, even musicians, if you look at like musicians and to tie in the martial arts, the reason why I love it so much as well, obviously it is a sport because it's not since a judge, somebody can get knocked out or they can do points, but the technique of fighting or the mixed martial art of it is the technique of learning that's a craft that is really meant for self-defense and not really how they've turned
Right.
it into the sport, but it can be. But each fighter has their own style. And sometimes you can see one fight another and you think one's going to win and one doesn't because their styles are different. And it still doesn't match. You know what I mean? Like it
For
still
sure.
doesn't, there's not a comparison to it.
Right.
Because I just don't think it's meant to be. Art reflects humanity.
Okay.
So art's purpose is to reflect humanity in the current state that we're in, right? And artists take it in and put it out there. And some of it, like, what are you doing? Or, oh, I totally connect to that, right? It's just the idea of putting it out there. And it's meant for us to look and reflect on what we see. This is our
Right.
humanity. And to judge it and compare it is kind of like ruining our humanity in a sense. Because, I mean, I tell my students this all the time, like flowers don't look at each other and say, like,
I'm more beautiful than you.
like I'm taller than you, I'm growing better. Like they don't judge each other. They just grow. They grow and they express themselves with whatever their surroundings and their quality and how much water and all those things. And we're much like that, but we have this bigger brain than a flower. And we need that self-expression. And if we cannot outwardly express ourselves and we feel judged, that's going to sort of ruin our humanity. And that's why trying to compare them and compete against each other should stop. And it
Right.
should just be you dance, work it out. That was great. You dance. That's great. And just celebrating the fact that we can express ourselves through movement.
Great wisdom there,
I'm
Susie.
sorry. I got a little
No, it's
emotional.
good. It's good. That's very insightful. And I like it when people share the wisdom of their years because, we're each on our own little journeys and we're learning our own things. And so you have this expertise and this wisdom. And I think it's really neat. And I think
Thank you.
that, thank you for preserving a cultural, beautiful thing that I understand now from talking to you. Is getting, what would be the word? Thinking of water, diluted.
I was going to just say watered down. It's
Yeah.
getting diluted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I look forward to the next dance festival and checking out some of the beauty of it and the uniqueness of it and, and what is being preserved. So thank you for sharing all your insights.
Oh, my pleasure.
I want to tell the listeners that I have some free stuff for you guys. It's whether it's mental training or my Mind Mastered app or even my Shotgun Club. You just go to dawngrant.com/free. And Susie, what's your contact info and website and how can people reach you and what can they get from you?
So if you go to Amelia Island Dance Festival.org, ORG for nonprofit, right? So that's is our website. And it has email is info@AmeliaIslandDanceFestival.org, all spelled out. You can find, you can get on our newsletter so you get updates on that. We are on Facebook, Instagram, kind of on TikTok, but not really. We have LinkedIn, all those places we have presence where we put stuff out there, and you can connect me through any of the website or the info at Amelia if you want to email me directly. Or DM any of the social media accounts that we have and learn out more of this. We're going to start a community class in January, where we're going to offer up some just safe places for people to come and try something new dance-wise, just movement, not hip hop or one thing. It's just movement classes.
Okay.
And you can get on our newsletter and find out all that information.
And individually, are you doing instruction? Or everything's through the dance festival?
Everything's through the dance festival. Currently, I am not teaching anymore. I have taken a hiatus to focus on the dance festival and making that come together more.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. Well, that's awesome. And I really appreciate you sharing and giving some great insight and understanding to an area that not everybody dives into. And
I appreciate you for doing that. It really means a lot to me. That you would take the time to learn about something that I think more people would appreciate if they weren't so afraid of.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because people are afraid of it, aren't they? That's literal. Afraid of dancing.
Afraid of dancing.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's movement is the magic. Movement is, dancing doesn't have to be full out kickball chain, spin around splits. It can just be country line dancing or salsa dancing or tap dancing or, there's so many vehicles. And that's why the dance festival brings all these different artists in. We had 35 workshops last year that had hula and belly dancing and swing dancing. I mean, there's so many things that you can find a jam to be wow, this is awesome. I never thought that I would like this. I had couples that took, ballroom and they were like, this is great. It's a great way to connect with your partner.
For sure.
Something different. And when you move, you ultimately feel better. It's great exercise. It's a great social interaction. And there's a lot of stuff around here where you can find dance. So.
Well, and one of the cool things that happens, and you alluded to it, whether you realized it or not, but when somebody's dancing and they're in that moment, so the conscious mind can only focus on one thing at a time, literally. So if you're learning a new dance step or moves or whatever, and you're thinking about a conversation you had with somebody else or dinner or whatever else, you're not present enough to get those movements. And then what happens is that with repetition, the movements go into your subconscious. And then you can just, if you're in that moment, again, not thinking about dinner or a conversation you had with somebody. So you have to have a clear, quiet, conscious mind and then trust and allow these things that have gone into your subconscious to just come forward And it is the closest you can get to God, for sure. You had said that at the very beginning. And that is, it's a state, I just got goosebumps. It's a state of euphoria, because we are our own worst enemies. So given the chance, the conscious mind will spin in drama and replay conversations and shouldas and couldas and wouldas and worry about the future and regret the past. And like, it's the misuse of this conscious mind. So when you shut it down and you're like, you're not thinking about that, and you're not thinking about that, and you're not thinking about that, and you're not going to overanalyze this moment, you're not going to worry about what you look like compared to the person next to you. Like, you shut all that down, you're in the moment, and there's beauty in that moment. And that's what you're doing.
So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Soul.
Mm-mm.
So it's a kid, like, I don't know if Pixar produced it, but it's about a jazz pianist player, and he falls into like a hole, and then he gets shot up into the souls, and he's like, I'm not ready to die. Okay. I can't be there. So he jumps off the cloud and he forces himself into somebody else's body. But there's a part in the movie where somebody's like, I don't understand. Like, what is it for you? Why do you have to play the piano, play jazz so much? She's like, man, it puts me into this place. And it visually, in this cartoon, it shows Earth and it shows these clouds. And then it has this like middle part where he's like the twinkles. And it's showing him playing and how he's floating in this place. Mm-hmm. And I can't even begin to tell you, but like when I dance or when I get to perform or when I'm moving like that and the music is on and I'm in that place, that's where I go.
For sure.
And it's just the most natural place where I feel to be. And I just have so much fun going there. And it's and you'll be surprised. Like if you do it, you don't have time to think about anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, for real, that a lot of people probably don't realize. And it's neat that you learned that at a young age, because you had exposure to something that helped you to go into that state. Because otherwise, it's through like something like meditation, and it takes work. You have to really shut down those thoughts and not believe them and let them go and come back into the moment over and over again. It takes work, and it's a big part of what I teach people how to do. So you've found an avenue to do that, which is really cool.
Thank you. But I will have to say, in my age, though, I don't have that avenue as much. And that's why I miss it. That's why for me, like right now, walking is the closest I can get to kind of just moving my body. And like, because, I don't have like dance classes to go to. And it's harder for me to just turn music on and dance around my house. But maybe I should.
Yeah. Meditation, again, it takes work. It's because you have to work at bringing your conscious mind into that moment or shutting it down. And there's a great euphoric feeling there. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you around town and attending the dance festival when it comes back around in
September.
Okay. Got it.
We have a special presentation in May with an awesome tap artist, John Manzari. But September, it's the weekend after Labor Day.
Perfect. Good to know. Thank you again, and we will talk soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mind Mastered Secrets of Excellence with Dawn Grant. Whether you're an elite athlete or pursuing success in your career or personal life, Dawn Grant's expertise and insights are here to guide you. Don't forget to visit dawngrant.com/free to grab your exclusive free resources, hypnosis audios, mental training tools, and even a golf cart at her club. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow, rate, and share this podcast. Stay connected with Dawn on all social media platforms for more inspiration, tips, and updates. Remember, mastering your mind is the key to unlocking your full potential. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and striving for excellence.